Welcome to my channel. Today I bring you a very special story, The Ant and the Grain of Wheat, a tale full of wisdom, perfect for children and adults alike. Get ready to enjoy, reflect, and be inspired by this meaningful fable with a powerful moral at the end. Let's begin. The Ant and the Grain of Wheat. Deep in a vast, green wheat field, where golden stalks swayed gently with the breeze and the sun warmed the soil with its gentle light, lived a small ant named Irma. Irma was not quite like the others. Although she was part of a large colony of worker ants, she sometimes paused to think. She watched the world with curiosity, wondering why everything always had to be done the same way. Still, she was diligent, dependable, and loyal to the tasks the queen assigned her. Every summer, Irma and her fellow ants would leave the nest at dawn, just as the morning dew began to fade, to gather seeds, grains of wheat, and every bit of food they could find to store for the winter. They knew the cold days would surely come, and they had to be ready. Though it was exhausting, every ant understood that hard work now meant survival later. One especially bright morning, Irma found a grain of wheat larger and shinier than any she had ever seen. It lay at the base of a broken stalk, resting on the moist earth. It was so heavy that she struggled to lift it alone, but she tried. As she moved it, a strange thought struck her. She stopped and stared at the grain. This one is perfect, she thought. It's big, shiny. If I take it to the colony, it'll just be tossed in with all the others. But what if I do something different? Irma looked around. No one was nearby. She picked up the grain, and, instead of carrying it to the storage chambers, she hid it beneath a dry leaf near a hollow root. She decided she would care for it in secret, as if it were her own. Maybe I can plant it. What if, instead of eating it, I wait and make it grow? I could get more grains, so many more. It would be a great reward. Over the following days, while she continued working with the colony, Irma began spending part of her free time caring for the hidden grain. She dug tiny channels to let water reach it, protected it from beetles, and made sure no other ant found it. She didn't really know how to grow wheat, but she had watched the humans in the fields sowing and harvesting, and she tried to imitate what little she'd understood. Weeks went by, and the grain began to sprout. First came a thin white root, then a slender stem reaching toward the sunlight. Irma was overjoyed. She had made her seed grow. While the other ants kept gathering food every day, Irma dreamed of her plant, of having her own little supply of wheat, without depending on anyone. But summer began to fade. The mornings grew colder, the wind stronger, and the golden wheat around the field started to wither. It was time to collect the last grains before frost covered the land. The ant queen summoned the entire colony and declared, "Winter is near. Starting tomorrow, we will all stay inside the nest. Any ant who hasn't stored enough food will go hungry." Irma felt a pang of fear. She had worked, yes, but not as much as in previous years. She had spent so much time and energy on her little wheat plant, which was still young, with only one green stalk. It wouldn't ripen before the first frost. She rushed to her secret spot and found the plant shivering in the wind. She tried to protect it with twigs and leaves, but a cold gust of wind made her realize the truth. Her plant would not survive the winter. Her plan had failed. She returned to the nest with her head low. Inside, in the food storage chambers, the ants were sorting and distributing the collected grains. The storage rooms were full, hills of wheat, poppy seeds, dried fruit. But Irma knew she hadn't contributed as much as the others. She sat quietly in a corner, shivering from cold and from shame. The days passed. Outside, the field lay under a crust of frost. Inside, the nest was warm, but food was rationed strictly. Each ant received according to how much they had gathered. The guards reviewed the collection records. When Irma's turn came, the storage manager looked at her with a firm expression. "Your contributions were low this year. They don't cover the whole season." What happened? Irma hesitated. Should she confess? Should she tell them she had tried to grow her own food in secret? That she had followed a dream that never bore fruit? "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I made a mistake. I found a special grain and decided to plant it, hoping it would grow into more, but I didn't think about the timing or the weather. All I have left is a failed attempt." The storage manager sighed. It wasn't the first time an ant had followed a dream that didn't fit the orderly life of the colony. You could have asked for help. You could have shared your idea. Maybe together, we would have made it work. But now winter is here, and we must be fair to everyone. Irma nodded. She understood. The weeks that followed were hard. Though she didn't starve, some kind friends shared tiny crumbs. She wasn't entitled to full rations. She felt the weight of her choice every day, not only in her empty belly but in her heart. But slowly, she also began to understand something deeper. When spring returned and the ground warmed, the colony emerged once again to work. Irma was the first to wake. She ran to the spot where she had planted her grain. To her surprise, a tiny stalk had grown, born from the dormant root. It had survived the frost after all, just too late for last winter. This time, Irma didn't keep it to herself. She returned to the nest and called the others. "I made a mistake last year," she said, "but I learned something. Now I know that if we want to try something new, we have to do it together. This plant could be the start of a new way to grow food. If we all help, maybe someday we won't have to rush so much to gather. We can work with the land, not just against the clock." The queen listened carefully. She didn't punish Irma, but recognized her honesty and vision. That year, part of the colony began a small experiment. They planted seeds near the nest. They learned to protect them, rotate them, and harvest them carefully. They still had to gather wild food, but now they were also learning to grow their own. Irma, who had once hidden a grain out of hope and selfishness, became known not for her mistake, but for planting a new way of thinking. Moral: individual effort is valuable, but when combined with collective wisdom and foresight, even our mistakes can become seeds of change. It's not enough to dream. You must know when to act, when to wait, and when to share. And that's the end of The Ant and the Grain of Wheat. I hope you enjoyed it and took away a meaningful lesson about teamwork, patience, and the importance of sharing. If you liked the story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with someone special. See you in the next story.